Hey guys, it's Sam, and welcome to Caps Lock, a podcast designed to help you live bigger, better, louder, and longer. Before we get started, I just want to thank you guys for listening and for giving this a chance and for coming here in pursuit of your best self. This is a space where we are going to grow together, and my hope is that it helps you go forward confidently, unapologetically, and with purpose. It's time to live your life in Caps Lock. If that mission feels aligned for you, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and let's dive in. Today's guest is the founder and CEO of Remedy Place, the world's first social wellness club. His journey began in 2015 when he earned his doctorate in chiropractic and alternative medicine. He left school with an extensive knowledge of anatomy, physiology, neuroscience, clinical nutrition, and rehabilitation, which would lay the groundwork for him to launch a private concierge wellness practice where he achieved a 100% success rate in helping his patients avoid major surgery by taking a non-invasive, non-drug approach to chronic pain rehabilitation. As demand for his work skyrocketed, he began to develop plans for an experiential wellness platform that would empower people to take control of their own health, while simultaneously building a highly engaged community rooted in shared values. In 2019, Remedy Place's flagship opened in West Hollywood, followed shortly by 2 locations in New York, and in 2025, we'll see Remedy Place expand to Boston and maybe beyond. Please join me in welcoming to the show Dr. Jonathan Leary.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to chat with you. This was born of me visiting and becoming obsessed with Remedy Place.
I love that. I love that.
I was like, who made this and how can I get their phone number? It was like you see a lot of these wellness places out in the world. It's very kind of in right now.
Yeah.
And I always run into one of 2 things. It either feels like you're in a public pool and you kind of like expect to find a Band-Aid on the floor or something like gross.
Fair.
Or there's like wires and medical equipment everywhere and it feels very like sterile and medical.
Yeah.
I felt like I was walking into the Amman when I got to Remedy Place. It's gorgeous. It's genuinely an oasis. I was at the one right here on Canal Street, and you're in this like bustling, like people are pushing past you and yelling and talking at you, and you walk in and it's like entering a different planet. I fell in love.
Love that.
It was great. So listen, there's so much about your work that I find compelling and I want to talk about all of it, but I think the best and most natural place to start is the beginning.
Okay.
So holistic medicine and alternative medicine are like all the rage today, very trendy. I feel like it's really in the zeitgeist. It's really online right now. Everyone from A-list celebrities to influencers to like suburban moms is taking like the non-prescription approach to their health. But that's really only come into the mainstream. I feel like I started to feel it and see it in my social circles, in my life, in the last like year or so. But you started going down this path in like, what, 2012?
2012 was when I started my program, and that's when I started the business plan for Remedy.
That's like you were ahead of all of it. So what drew you kind of toward the holistic approach, and what did you feel like you were averse to about like the traditional medical route?
Yeah, honestly, I grew up in Rhode Island and I knew nothing about alternative medicine. But alternative medicine's been around for so long. And when I was doing my pre-med studies, you have to volunteer in the hospital setting. You have to be in all these different clinics and specialties. And I was like, is this really the environment that I want to work in? And also, is this the way that I thought I was going to be helping people? And my vision at that time, even though I wasn't exposed to alternative medicine, I just knew that I just didn't want to work in a hospital setting.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have like a fast-paced, interaction with people that I didn't know, couldn't really educate, couldn't get to know. And, our healthcare system really isn't set up for success. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to create my own type of practice. And that's where it started. And it really was just creating a beautiful space that had hospitality standards, because there's no reason why the environments that we go in every day don't have to be enjoyable. And it's so important. And I honestly, throughout my doctorate, I started to learn about alternative medicine. And if I'm being completely honest, when I moved to LA, everyone started talking about energy and all these things about the body. And I'm like,
healing.
I'm like, these people are crazy. I'm like, absolutely crazy. And I'm like, I'm so science rooted. And like, I grew up in Rhode Island. I was never, like I said, I was never exposed to these things.
Right.
And then as you start to learn about them, you're like, wait, this does make sense. And there is science behind these things. Then you start practicing it on patients and you're like, wait, this actually works.
Wow.
And it's funny because unless it's in your circle, you know, you really had no way of finding out. And I think with like pharmaceuticals, there's billboards, there's ads. I mean, I think it should be illegal to
To
market
market
drugs,
prescription drugs, totally.
because you shouldn't be sitting at home watching a beautiful couple and being like, I want to feel that way,
Mm,
and then going to your doctor because the doctors go to school for 8 years to know that.
totally.
Um, but I just thought it was so interesting that I was like, okay, there's something happening here where this works. People say there's no science behind it. Why? And why don't more people at least try it? And I started to realize that there was no marketing. There isn't big dollars for
Mm,
awareness. And one of the biggest things that I'm grateful for social media is the rise of alternative medicine happened because of social media. And I was at a conference like 3 or 4 years before the pandemic, and they started to show the shift in awareness. Things like
mm,
even down to like meditation or
totally.
acupuncture or chiropractic.
Yeah.
Now you could post a video and it could get millions of views or tens of millions of views. And someone can tell about their experience of like, hey, this actually helped me. This actually worked. And because of that shift in awareness and it ever growing, it's a snowball effect. People don't feel good. Now you can give them a solution to make them feel better. And it doesn't have to be surgery and it doesn't have to be a drug. And there's a time and place for all of those, right?
Mhm.
But for the first line of intervention for a non emergency thing, we should be exploring holistic alternative options. And it's just so cool. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing because it's what's needed.
Yeah.
And the body's so powerful, right? Like we don't think about how complex and how amazing this body is. Like when you have a cut, I say it all the time. You have a cut, it scabs over
Yeah,
and it
like your
heals.
body's resilient.
Your body has the innate ability to heal itself.
That's crazy when you actually think about it. Like, we hear that and we know it happens,
Yeah.
but no one actually thinks deeper about it.
Well, that's what alternative medicine is. It's just shifting the environment or shifting the stimulus to enhance the body's own capabilities to do what it does best.
I'm obsessed with this. You're about to send me into, like, the rabbit hole, but there are a couple of things that I wanna pull out of what you just said because it resonates, and so much of it you hear at the high level, and I think you know so much more about it than, like, when I sit and talk to my friends, we can
Yeah.
say all the time, like, "The medical systems doesn't set you up to heal, it sets you up to, like, stay in it." But I wanna ask you to double click on that a little
Yeah.
bit because that, I think, is something that more people are becoming aware of, is that not necessarily that they don't want you to heal, they don't want you to get better, right? Like, big medicine, I don't
Yeah.
think has, like, the agenda of killing people necessarily, but I mean, like, I could conspiracy theory all day,
Yeah.
but we know that there's a lot of incentive to keep you coming back for more prescriptions,
Yeah.
right? There's incentive to stay within the 4 walls of that hospital.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about that. Like, how did you kind of come to that
Well,
realization?
well, think about it. A medical doctor, it studied medicine.
Mhm.
That's what their study and their specialty is. So I think the healthcare system gets a bad rap, but they're doing exactly what they were trained to do. Here's the symptom, here's the problem, here's the medication.
Patch it up.
Yeah, but they didn't consider that was patching it up. They were just thinking like this is the protocol, this is what we do.
Mm.
And I think what's interesting is when people like I had patients come to me all the time, they're like, why can't my primary care doctor tell me about nutrition or tell me how to improve my mental health or tell me about, movement and what I should be doing to be healthy? And I'm like, well, they didn't go to school to
Right, like,
learn that.
that wasn't in their curriculum,
Yeah, and I
really.
think that's the problem. I
Yeah.
think what we're starting to realize is this new wave of healthcare has a very small scope.
Mhm.
And the scope is really, they're great at saving your life.
Yeah.
We have so many advancements in medicine and surgery that are saving lives, but they're not making people healthy.
Mm.
And what's wild to me is the top 8 chronic conditions in the US last year were the highest they've ever been. So what we're doing isn't working. It's like I said, it's saving lives, but it's not making us healthy.
Yeah.
And that means things need to change. And if we don't create the change, things are only going to get worse.
Yeah, what are those chronic conditions? Like, what are some of those chronic
Everything
conditions?
from cancer to cardio,
Oh,
like think of
man.
like diabetes. I mean, these can't like it's so wild to be as advanced as we are.
And for those numbers to be climbing at rates like that, I mean, I just spoke with a friend here on the show. She was diagnosed with breast cancer at age 19.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about how those rates are climbing amongst young women faster than they are anyone else.
Cancer is scary. I mean,
It's
it's
crazy.
the cancer numbers and the statistics on them. It's it's honestly wild.
Yeah.
Um, and it's happening faster than we ever have seen.
Yeah. And I don't want to spend the whole episode talking about this because I could, but I mean, it's like the lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
It's the processed foods, it's the pollution. Like, what do you think are the biggest factors there?
I think it's very simple, right? I think it's people aren't moving. Like if people just got 10,000 steps in a day, not even going to these crazy workout classes, like
Hmm.
just moving, movement cures. I think anything we put in or on our body
Yeah.
is either fueling disease or fighting it.
Mm,
And our food is the worst that it's ever been.
I know. So
And
scary.
it's like what we're doing to our food is illegal in certain countries. And it's like,
Well,
how, c-
most of the countries,
yeah,
most of the developed
like
countries.
how can we do that? And I think we're putting things that aren't natural in our body, right? So when you think about that, just logically, if your body doesn't recognize something, it's going to fight it.
Yeah, it
And
rejects it.
it's gonna try to either flush it out or it's
Hmm.
gonna try to fight. And if we keep putting things in our body that are foreign, your body, an autoimmune condition is exactly your body fighting itself. Why would your body fight itself?
Right. Only
Uh,
if something was deeply wrong.
yeah,
Right.
or if there's something in there that shouldn't be.
Yeah. That's so scary.
And I think the biggest problem is isolation. The
Mm.
studies, like we've always known in research that the correlation between mental health and isolation. Like people don't do well with isolation
Hmm.
mentally. But through the pandemic, we're actually seeing the consequences on physical health.
Yeah.
And if you look at the past 20 years, every interaction with family, with friends, with partners, everyone is on a steep decline. We're spending less time with other humans than ever before. And because of that, people are sick.
Totally.
And we can't, there's like the beauty of things like social media, like I just said, shifting awareness.
Hmm.
But those connections that we have just digitally are going to make us sick if we don't start putting in the real side. And I think that is probably one of the biggest things. Like we were talking about blue zones earlier. Like one of the common denominators between blue zones is just community. We need to just be around people, and it's really just that simple.
We're sharing a brain right now. I don't know if you guys can feel what's happening, but the words I have in my brain are coming out of your mouth right now. It's such a bizarre feeling, but I wanted to talk about that because so you went from your your concierge wellness
Practice, yeah,
practice to a social kind of community-based wellness experience for
yeah,
people. And like you're saying, the social aspect is not just for fun.
yeah,
It's not just to like find a boyfriend, which like I want to pause and say this is a great place to meet a partner for sure. Like the kinds of people there are the kinds of people you want to be dating. So like all the girls always asking me like, where do I go in New York to meet a boyfriend? Go to Remedy Place. I couldn't be more serious. But I did want to talk about Blue Zone. So this guy, Dan Buettner,
yeah,
you know who he is. A lot of our listeners know who he is because I'm a huge fan of his work. I really admire it. And he is kind of responsible for having like gone out and accumulated and gathered and parsed and synthesized all this information from the places on planet Earth where people live healthiest longest. And those
yeah.
are the blue zones, right? One of them is Okinawa in
Okay,
Japan. And in Okinawa and in Okinawan culture, there's this concept of moai. Do you know what this is?
no,
Oh, you're going to love this. So, this concept, this term originated as a way for communities to pool their financial resources And in more recent, probably in like this last generation, has really taken on a little bit of a different life, which is that it's more focused on socialization with concern to building small group relationships
Hmm.
founded on the principles of like deep mutual respect and understanding one another and
Wow.
supporting one another in long-term capacities. And so these small group-based friendships actually start in childhood, like kids kind of like pair off into groups,
Yeah.
and then they spend their whole lives committed as a friend to that group.
Wow.
And so these friendships between like 3 to like 7 roughly people last for 100 years.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. It's actually really common there. Like around half of people in Okinawa report that they belong to at least one moai. You can belong to multiple too. And there's a lot of research saying it's linked not only to your happiness and like stress reduction in the day to day experience and like more of an emotional equilibrium. Like if crisis strikes, you're actually easier able to find your balance and
Yeah.
kind of come back from it. But it actually is linked to longer lifespans
Yeah.
and being healthier for longer. So I just think it's like so interesting that you bring that up and that that's a central tenet of what you're doing at Remedy Place. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that wasn't the real origin story of why it was social.
Tell me more.
So the real reason was, remember I was saying like at first Remedy Place was just this beautiful place. I wanted
Yeah.
this to be a new version for my practice.
Hmm.
Um, and when I wasn't able to get a business loan and start it right out of school, that's when I started my practice. And I was documenting everything with patients for 5 years. What worked, what didn't work, what were they willing to do, what were they not willing to do, common lifestyle habits, and just also learning the business side of like, all right, how can I make Remedy better and better? And the number one complaint that I had from my patients was, Dr. Leary, I feel incredible. Like we fixed all my issues, but you're ruining my social life. And they
Oh,
said
God.
all of these lifestyle changes, because in order to fix the root cause, my patients had to put in a lot of work
Totally.
and it would get them well. But they're like, now I can't go to events. How am I supposed to meet people? How am I supposed
Right.
to
Like you're not
date?
going to the club.
Yeah, you can't do anything. So
Crazy.
I wrote it down over and over again. Like, why is it that everything we do when we socialize has a negative impact on our health?
Mm.
Which was fascinating because, like, yes, there's a correlation between human connection and that being part of the healing process. But at first, I was like, I want people to be able to have fun and to be social
Yeah.
while being able to take care of themselves and not ruining their, these new lifestyle changes. And I was like, all right, well, like, how can I make a date healthy? How can I make like a replacement for, a happy hour or Friday night or where you host an event? And we call them social substitutions. And these are just taking the normal things that you and I and everyone does and just replace it with something new. So it's like just for most things that are social, it's usually alcohol and food.
Totally.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to take away the alcohol and food. I'm just going to give a self care experience. And that's why everything at Remedy can be booked, for a party of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on what the suite is.
Totally.
And everyone was like, "That's the most LA concept in the world. That won't
Like
work."
it won't land in
Yeah,
New
like that's
York.
gonna do good in LA, and like
Yeah.
especially like in the beginning, people were like, "That would never fly in New York. New Yorkers wouldn't do it." And
Right.
New Yorkers need it more than ever. And we've seen in New York, like New York's the hotspot. Like
Totally.
people are obsessed with it, and it's so cool because it's even yesterday we had this huge event, and I'm like, how amazing is it that it's people are actually being not only receptive, but they love that these are their new
Yeah, like they're
substitutions.
excited.
Yeah,
Yeah, my friends and I had like a running joke for a while that New Yorkers don't have hobbies.
yeah,
Like when I first came out of school, like I grew up in New Jersey, so like I was in and out of the city a lot. I was a ballerina growing up. And so like I've spent a lot of time here my whole life. And then when we moved here, we were like, I mean, like there's so much culture here, there's so much to do, but we don't have hobbies. You wake up, you go to work for 10 hours, you maybe hit the gym if you're lucky, you go to bed. And
it's interesting.
like when you do have the opportunity to socialize, whether it be like a weeknight or a weekend, like you said, it's focused around drinking. So if
Yeah,
you don't want to do that, you're sitting at home alone on a Saturday night.
yeah,
But the reason I want to kind of go deeper on this is because I just think the rise of social wellness, like what you're doing at Remedy and people like wanting to do, like there's a thing called Coffee and Chill in Miami
yeah.
that was run by my friend for a while. And like
Cool.
they're
I
waking up
just
in
met
the
them.
morning. Really?
Yeah, they were at our event. We had like a healthy beach club last week in
Yeah.
Miami. Or
Okay.
yeah, last week.
Love. Yeah, they're
They
so
were so
great, and,
sweet.
like, they're doing cool, like, cold plunge mornings with, like,
Yeah.
coffee. It's all, like, no alcohol. And so I really just think it's becoming clearer and clearer that the rise of social wellness is inextricably linked with the decline of social drinking. So, like Gen Z drinking 20% less than millennials,
Yeah.
a quarter of Gen Z is completely sober.
Yeah.
And this year, and this one like really kind of blew me away, only 58% of surveyed Americans in a Gallup poll identified themselves as people who drink alcohol regularly. This is the lowest rate reported since '96. That's almost 30 years.
I love it.
That's
It's
crazy.
amazing.
It's gotta be related.
Yeah. I mean, I watch the statistics on it all the time.
Mhm.
And it's not just a US thing. It's like, even I did this big conference earlier in the year in London, and it was 6,000 people. And like the younger groups were like, we don't drink. And I'm like, to think of, like 10 years ago, me going to London, having friends, I'm like, I just
Be
like,
wasted.
yeah, I'm like, this group's wild. And I just always
Yeah.
just knew and expected it. But it's happening so fast. And it's just crazy. Like, remember, most of the things we do in life are because we just inherently were exposed, and that became the ritual. Or people do things
Yeah.
because you're supposed to go have a drink.
Right, like, your big sister is, like, going out and partying with her friends when she's, like, 17 and, like, sneaking you a beer, and, like,
Yeah,
it's a cultural thing, like, you see it and you're like, "I wanna fit in, I wanna be part of that."
but alcohol is a toxin, right? So it's like we pay to put a toxin in our body that's a dissociative and a depressant.
Mhm.
People aren't mentally well, and they don't feel connected, and alcohol is just disconnecting them and making them sadder. And when you think about it, you're like, why?
Why are we investing in that?
But the craziest statistic is as we watch that decline, you wanna know it's 6 times worse than alcohol?
Oh, what?
Isolation.
Is 6 times worse
Yes.
than alcohol?
So the latest research article that just came out, by the US Surgeon General is that the equivalent of full isolation is the same as 6 alcoholic beverages a day.
A day?
A day.
That's binge drinking
Yeah.
for men,
Yeah.
not just women. Like,
No,
that's like blacking out for
no,
women.
no, it's insane. So when you start actually quantifying that and thinking about it, that is how bad it is for us to be isolated.
Oh my
And
god.
that shows you how important it is to actually be connected.
This is so I just did an episode recently on kind of my journey with sober curiosity, which
Cool.
mostly was like founded and rooted in like feeling better
Yeah.
physically and emotionally when I wasn't drinking. Like
Yeah.
even if I was drinking like once a week, there's just this like kind of cloud of like or this like fog kind of that I can't get
Yeah.
through. When I stopped, my whole life changed.
Yeah.
But the reason I say that is because when you say that isolation is 6 times worse than drinking alcohol, that's crazy to me because during the, like, research and writing portion of that episode, I found out that alcohol is a group 1 carcinogen.
Yeah.
It's in the same category as formaldehyde,
Yeah.
arsenic, like, things that you would never put in or around your body, and isolation is worse than that.
And if you look at it too, like the ranking of every drug
Mhm.
or like toxin, alcohol is worse than almost every single drug.
Why
On the
why is that the most ubiquitous then? Like, why aren't we doing, like, ketamine then? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
some of us are,
No, but
right? But
that just shows how interesting it is. It's just like the awareness is shifting, and I think
yeah,
as awareness shifts, there's gonna be a lot more people looking into it. It's
yeah.
gonna be really eye-opening, but we need these big aha moments to shift what's happening, because to create global changes, you need some big stats and
Totally.
some big, like, light switches to go off in everyone's head at the same time, but we're in that
We're
stage.
getting them.
Like,
Yeah.
right now is the coolest time to be in the health and wellness industry because people actually understand their value of health.
Mm.
And I think what's so interesting is, like, I hear this a lot, but we talk about prevention. It's like people are thinking about being healthy or doing self-care or, like, taking care of themselves just to not get sick.
Yeah.
That's like one side of it. Like, of course, like, we're so sick that we just want people to not get sick,
Sure.
but health can also be used as a tool to maximize your performance and success.
Right, you can be proactive
Yeah.
about it.
Like, the healthier you are, the more successful you're going to be in every vertical of your life.
Totally.
Your happiness, your relationships, your personality, your creativity, your work. And when you actually just start thinking of, like, oh, I don't need to just be healthy to not get sick. I need to be healthy so that I can be the best version of myself to do what I'm supposed to do in this world in my lifetime.
I totally agree. So I want to pull out two things. One, I think the thing about how alcohol is the worst thing, but the most ubiquitous, and like the awareness is coming on,
Yeah.
proves so deeply that it's so much about the packaging,
Yeah.
right? And that's why what you're doing at Remedy Place, I think, is really important, because making it a place where people want to go.
Yeah.
Like, how did someone make alcohol, which is literally poison, we've
Yeah.
determined, so enticing and appealing to
Yeah.
such a wide variety of people, right? Like, it doesn't discriminate. Everyone wants to drink and party.
Yeah.
So that's part of why I think it's so cool that like the space at Remedy and like the services and the community feel, that I think is so special, because you need to make it something that people really want to go do.
Yeah.
And then the second thing, I have started being proactive on my wellness journey, and it was like
Cool.
kind of in tandem with stopping drinking. And I went to get blood work done because I wanted to check my biomarkers.
Yeah.
And I went to a new doctor to do it because I see holistic doctors. And
Yeah.
so he was like, you have to go like see like a medicine doctor for
Yeah.
like your blood work. And I was like, okay, let's put my health insurance to use then at least. And the guy was like blown away that I came to him in good health. He was like, what are we treating?
Yeah.
And I was like, nothing. I feel great. I
Yeah.
feel good. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I exercise. I eat right. I'm trying to eliminate endocrine disruptors from my lifestyle. I drink out of glass water bottles. I like don't use plastic bags. And he was like, so what are you doing here? And I was like, I want you to run these like whatever panels. And I asked for like all the lipid panels
Yeah.
and like everything that Dr. Casey Means recommends, basically,
Yeah.
like when you watch her videos. And he was like, you're the first person in I don't know how long, maybe ever, who came to me like this. And he was amped.
Yeah.
He was so excited to see me that I came in good health, wanting to just get stronger and better. Doctors never see that. What can we do to make people
Yeah.
start understanding the power of that?
Well, it's wild because I do my blood work every 6 months.
Okay.
Normal traditional doctor visits, you get diagnostic blood work. It's just to see are you sick or not sick.
Mm-hmm.
The rise of functional medicine is, I think, the future of healthcare.
Yeah.
Because functional medicine isn't just looking at you sick or not sick. It's looking at every organ, every system, every deficiency, every toxicity level, every sensitivity. You can look at everything now through
Mhm.
blood, and that will basically give you like the instruction manual to your body. We can now look into everything going on. And if you really analyze the biochemistry of all of these hormones to imbalances or all of these markers, you can always figure out what is causing, like what's the root cause of what's going on here.
Yeah.
And that's where functional medicine, it isn't just about getting to the root cause, but it's also just to get you baseline is not good enough. Like I don't want to be balanced. I want to be beyond balanced. Like why would we ever want to just be average with our health? Like
no one thinks about that,
no,
by the way. Everyone's like, I just want to be like not sick.
I just want to get my numbers right. It's like,
right.
no, don't you want to make your numbers beyond that? Like
Don't you want to feel like a superhuman? I think most people have not felt what it feels like to be completely optimized in your health.
no, and most people will never get to that stage. And I think the sicker you are, the more numb you are to feeling anything in life.
Right.
And when you start to feel better, that's why everyone right now is so passionate about health and wellness, because when you feel good, you're like, wait, I didn't know I could feel like this, but they don't realize that there's no limit.
Right.
Like you can continue to feel better and better as you keep progressing.
yeah.
And why wouldn't you want to?
It's so addicting for that exact reason. Like you feel amazing and you're like, wait, you're telling me it gets better than this?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So okay, everyone's starting on their wellness journey.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone's getting it now, finally. I feel like this last year, it's all I've heard about. It's all I've thought about. It's like
Yeah.
everyone's in it. But I think when people start on their journey, their little exploration, their beginnings of understanding all of it, they immediately run into this brick wall. And that is that there is so much information,
Yeah.
some true, a lot of it not true.
Yeah.
And we're sold so many treatments and products and trends and programs. And as a result, there's so much noise.
Yeah.
And I think people really struggle to separate what they actually need, like what's good for them, versus like what's superfluous or even in the bad cases misleading.
Yeah.
How do you cut through the noise? How do you recommend other people cut through the noise? Like, what are your criteria for determining what actually will help you, will make you feel better, will improve your longevity versus like what is just like someone hawking a product at you?
Yeah, it's extremely hard. Right now, there really isn't that database to test and understand. And listen, I think everyone that's in the health and wellness industry has good intentions, right?
Right.
There's also a lot of people that understand this is a great business.
Hmm.
I think the big red flag is if anything's marketing as like this quick fix, this amazing fast solution,
Mm.
nothing's a magical thing, right? And being healthy takes daily work.
Mhm.
This is something that you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I think when people are saying quick fixes, fast solutions, be wary of
Instant
that.
red
Yeah,
flag.
like I
Yeah.
think, and also know that no one is going to make you healthy. Only you are going to make you healthy. And the best thing that you can do as any individual in the world is to try to learn and study your body like it's the most important asset that you have.
Yeah.
I always say it's like your mind and your body is your number one asset, and you don't even know how it works. Never mind how to take care of it.
So true.
So the starting point is try to actually study how the body works
Mm.
because it's easy to understand what to do to it the more that you understand how it runs.
Totally.
And, science is ever changing and so is our body. So we have to continually study. And I think you don't need to go to places like Remedy to be healthy. I want places like Remedy Place to be like your new form of entertainment that you go have fun.
Right.
That's your new way to go hang out in a
Mm.
luxury space. Yes, of course, everything there is making you feel better and healing. But the foundational pillars of health are simple. Like I said, like we need to move. Movement cures. If you're in pain, it's because something's not moving properly. Start with your steps. Doesn't cost anything. With food, really think of anything that, like I'm sure with makeup or lotions or
Yeah.
soaps or anything we're touching from cleaning supplies, like anything that interacts with your skin or anything you put in your body, is it enhancing me or is it working against me?
Right.
And if you start thinking about that, sometimes it's okay for it not to work with me and it's against me because it's, like you also have to test the systems.
100%.
And then it's finding more healthy human interactions. Like
Mm.
for me, human connection is everything. And I think what I always try to tell people is one of the most impactful things that I think you can do is go try to find and establish 5 communities.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is something that you do on a weekly basis with a different subset of group of people.
Hmm.
It could just be your morning coffee shop and it's the people that walk in and the clerk at the front desk. It can be your gym, it can be your work, it could be your group of friends. But I think it's so important that we not only find more human interaction, but also to be more diverse with the perspective and not just be in one bubble. So I think a lot of the times we stay in one friend group where people are just like us, and then it narrows your perspective on life. And I think it's really important to always push, right? Understand more and more different types of people with different perspectives and different backgrounds. Because the more interactions that you have with more people, the more well rounded you're going to be. And it's also going to help your mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. It's like, all right, so I need to watch what I eat, move, make sure I have more interaction, and then just make small routines. Like if you don't have an ice bath, start with cold showers.
Right.
And if you do routines, if you do something once, you'll feel better. If you do it over and over again, routines turn into habits and habits turn into change. And the goal is to ever change, right? Like change happens when you're better than your environment. And you have to go through things and be uncomfortable and be misunderstood and do hard things. Like I think there's also this big misconception now in the world that stress is bad.
Yeah.
Moderate stress is not bad. Moderate stress actually enhances your performance and your memory, and it's so important. Like if we go to the gym and use resistance to be strong, that's a stress.
Right.
We
Totally.
have to teach the body how to be more resilient. But you can do that with every aspect of your life, and if you don't do hard things and you don't experience stress, you will be weak.
That's so important. And I am like happy to hear it because I do feel like every conversation right now is bring your cortisol down, like stop putting yourself in stressful situations, like come up with all these coping mechanisms. And I think some of that isn't needed, right? Like your cortisol you shouldn't be in fight or flight all the time.
Yeah.
But It's kind of the same concept as, like, the participation trophy generation, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like we're building people to be so sensitive to
Yeah.
these things that they are losing resilience. Like, they are losing, like, the interest in, like, fighting or engaging or even, like, debating. Like, I agree, I think there's a degree of stress that's required to make you perform.
And that's not new science.
Right.
We know that. Like
That's why
you
professional
have
sports exist.
you have cortisol in your sympathetic nervous system because there's two parts. There's the rest and digest side and there's fight and flight.
Mm.
You need the balance. And I think it's so important. I also think that, living in LA for 12 years and noticing like everyone being so particular with every single thing that they do with their health routine, they ended up being some of the most people that had the most health problems and the most symptom.
Wow, yeah.
And I'm like, life isn't about being perfect. And it's also, you do need to challenge the systems. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't do that, they're not going to be able to handle when you do have to be exposed to those things.
Have you read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley?
I haven't.
Oh my god, you need to. It's classic literature, but in the book, he envisions this world in which it's like a future kind of like dystopian
Okay.
novel, and it's a world in which the government controls everything. They build people in like a lab,
Yeah.
basically, like they design embryos in a lab and they put them in like a caste system
Yeah.
predestined, and they're like, this is the kind of job you're going to do, and this is the kind of life you're going to live, and this is the kind of mental acuity you're going to have and physical like body that you're going to have. So they design these people and then they put them in castes and assign them jobs and roles in society, and then they create a world in which there are no stressors. And if you ever feel stressed, they are like mass dispensing a drug called soma.
Yeah.
And anytime someone feels like a shred of stress or distress or being upset or anything that
Yeah.
kind of disrupts the equilibrium, they just pop them and you're on like a mental vacation.
Huh.
And there are like a couple of free thinkers that start to be like, okay, we're good, but we're not fulfilled.
Yeah.
Like we're not reaching, like we're not feeling anything.
Yeah.
And I just think you would love it. It really speaks to kind of what we're talking about right
I'll
now.
definitely read it.
It's really an interesting exploration. I think I'm gonna give it to you. I'll send it to you. Because I really think it's such a good read, and I think everyone should experience it. And I think it just really hits the same kind of chord that we're talking about right now.
And people to actually make sense of it a little bit more, like the reason why I'm so fascinated with stress right now is because we've been doing ice baths obviously at the club for a long time.
Yeah.
Not just in the club
In
and
the world.
and
Yeah.
with my patients and personally.
Hmm.
And then the more that I'm starting to analyze everything that we do in Remedy, like every experience, it actually, each thing is a stress, right? Extreme hot, extreme cold,
Mm.
oxygen with extreme pressure, your lymphatic compression, extreme compression,
Yeah.
like an acupuncture needle, cupping, an adjustment. These are external stimuli that
Totally.
could be considered a stress. And I just think of like, all right, if we know going in that bath and we have to develop this resilience against such an extreme, and that's why we feel so good, and that's
That's
why
such
our
a good
body
point.
performs so better after. And I'm like, wait, I actually think we need to do that with every aspect of our life. Like, how even if you're, hey, this is the type of diet that I'm on, or this is whatever it is, it's like it's also important to test the body after to like
Mhm.
give it that burger every now and then just to see like, oh, can I withstand something that isn't normal?
Totally.
Because if your body can't be resilient or adapt to more things, that would make sense that you would be weaker, right?
Yeah, that's such a good call out too, that like all of these things and people really look at them as like self-care,
Yeah.
relaxation, but when you actually think about what they are, it's not like you're like getting a
Yeah.
little like comfy massage. And even when you are getting a massage, by the way, like a good one
Yeah.
hurts. Like it feels like
Yeah.
work.
No,
So that's
exactly.
such a good point. So let's talk about that then. Like when you were building Remedy and designing like what the services would be from either your practitioners or on the tech side,
Yeah.
how did you decide what to incorporate? I mean, like you see saunas in places, you see ice baths in places, but there's actually a really specific kind of menu
Yeah.
at Remedy and it's extensive, but it feels like very hand selected.
Yeah. I think it goes to your earlier point of like how I'm looking at like how to make everything mainstream,
Mm.
right? Because I need to shift awareness, and
Mhm.
I also need to take it stage by stage. As awareness shifts, I think I can explore more. But at first, like things like acupuncture or meditation or chiropractic, people weren't receptive to those things. So I had to be very
Yeah,
careful on how they were introduced, how we talk about them, because if I know it works, but people are resistant to it, I need to find a way to at least get them to, like, a way to try it once. And
yeah.
everything that's in Remedy now is there because I tested it on my patients and myself for now over a decade.
Mm.
And, there's a lot more that we will develop and release and within the new clubs explore, but we also need to make sure that people are willing to give it a shot.
Totally.
But we're also studying it, right? Like I said, I've been working on this since 2012. This isn't someone like pitching me fancy technologies and saying, this is what's cool.
Right, and you, like, buy in because
Yeah, it's
it's
like,
chic.
I want people to really trust our brand, and they do. And my job right now, like, especially when it is just about the education for anyone, anywhere, our job is to make sure that you don't have to be guessing, is this good for me? Is it not good for me? Does that work?
Mm.
Like Remedy genuinely does have your best interest at heart. And in my practice, I saw so many people so vulnerable. And people, if you don't feel good and you don't know what to do and you don't know who to trust, that is it's a scary, sad thing. And I'm
We were on
like,
the defense all the time then.
yeah. And I just want everyone to know like everything's at Remedy because I know that it works and
Yep.
because it's what's best for you. And there's a million ways that we could have cut so many costs or done something a different way, but that's not Remedy. It's not what I would ever do because it's so important to me. And I'm just getting started. Like this is the beginning of my career, even though I've been doing it since 2012. Like I'm only
I was
34,
gonna say, you're like a kid.
but that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like I have a long plan ahead,
Yep.
and I just think it's so important to always do things for the right reasons. And as business opportunities have come, we've turned down so many business things because this isn't a business for me. Like I'm so happy. Like it's not only my baby and my passion, and it helps people. It's like to have all of these things. I don't need all these different buckets to fulfill me. Like I'm so lucky that my work helps people, is my passion, is my work, makes me happy, makes me healthy, and I get to meet cool people all the time and do all these cool things. I like it's the dream that I always wanted, and it's so corny to say, but like the dream already came true. So like now I just want to like I want Remedy Place to be the biggest, most impactful company in the world, and I think if I think self care is going to be the biggest thing in the health and wellness industry, who's going to be that leader? And I genuinely think that Remedy Place can be that.
Oh my god, that's amazing. Well, my next question was gonna be, what do you think is your purpose? Because I felt like we were getting there, and that feels like it is. That
Yeah,
feels like what it is.
100%. I want to use Remedy Place, the brand, as a free educational platform to teach people, no matter who they are, what they have access to, how their body works, and how to take care of it. Because that's what's so important. Like, there isn't that source, right? And, like, and there, I don't want any other ulterior motives in that. Does that make sense? It's
Yeah,
like so many times
completely.
you can create a nutrition program and write a book, and then you have a supplement, and that's great, and it is helpful. But I just want there's also other options, right? And I want to at least have this really big platform and everything that we're learning. Like as we capture more data and more understanding, being able to share that not only with everyone,
Mhm.
but also other businesses. Like
Yeah.
how can Remedy Place help every self-care, social wellness, recovery, longevity space in the
Like, they
world?
can all
You know,
complement each other.
yeah.
I did a Prenuvo scan yesterday
Love.
for the first time. It was so easy, and I do think we're gonna have their CEO come and talk about it a little bit, but something that I think they said to me yesterday that's really you're echoing to me right now is, like, all of these things are not designed to be, like, one solution that replaces everything.
Yeah.
Your whole life, every single aspect of it contributes to your overall wellness.
Yeah.
They're supposed to complement each other. You're supposed to do all of it and work
Yeah.
on all of it, and I love to hear that. So I feel like you have a vision for the future of wellness
Yeah.
in, like, the person's day-to-day experience.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think, like, we need to see some big systemic changes happen in terms of, like, what kind of food we're putting in our bodies, what kind of chemicals we're putting in our lotions and shower products and, like, stuff that we interact with every day. But I kind of wanna talk about there are all of those things that are outside of our control.
Yeah.
What do we have control over in the meantime? Which I think we're kind of answering, but I'd love to kind of condense a little bit, and I'd love to discuss it in the context of the framework. Can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about the framework and, like, how you're using it to help, like, empower people
Yeah.
to to control what they can?
Yeah. I think there's certain things that we're never going to be able to control. Anything except you. And I think
Right.
what's important is this is where your health and your focus on your health, the healthier you are, the more resilient you're going to be to anything that you're exposed to.
Mhm.
Right. So if we have the environmental toxins, if we're not having as many social interactions, if we're not able to get healthy food, all of these things, it's like, even think of your immune system. Like, it's being exposed to the bacteria and the viruses that our bodies learn how to fight
Mhm.
so that it can be more resilient, right? So it's once
Right,
again,
like, it happens naturally
yeah,
without
like
you even trying.
100%. I mean, down to like vaginal birth, like that's the first
Right.
exposure to bacteria. And they have the studies that show of like, that's where your immune system starts being generated,
It's crazy.
right? And it's like, I think so many people are so scared of like germs and disinfectants. I'm like,
Right, exposure
no,
in the first
let your
place.
kids go roll around in the dirt. Like
Right, this is the best lick
that
the swing set.
that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's just understanding that while the world is trying to autocorrect and as awareness and all these things change, you're not going to have much control of the external stimuli and
Mhm.
problems. But the healthier that you focus on, every little tiny advancement in your health is going to make you more resilient to anything that you're exposed to.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. And the framework was it was really developed of like the start of this free educational platform. And it's when I moved to New York, I live between LA and New York, but when I moved here, I was spending a lot more time because we were getting the Flatiron Club open. And it was like 6 months in, and I started having like these crazy levels of fatigue and some
Mm,
like all these gastrointestinal problems where I'm like, what is going on? Like, same stress levels, same workload, same self care routine, same diet.
interesting.
And I'm like, what is going on? And I had my 6 month blood work that I always do, and all my markers were off. I'm like, what, what happened? Because
Right.
nothing changed. Like, yes, I moved. And like, yes, maybe like the moving in different environments or shifting things, but it made me look beyond just nutrition, movement, my self care practice.
Which is what, by the way, everyone thinks, like, those are the things. Those
Yeah.
are your wellness practice.
So I started auditing everything in my life, every environment I'm in,
Mm,
every relationship interaction that I have. I started looking at my time. I started looking at all of these things that aren't traditional. I'm like, everything in our life can be designed to be healthier. And like something as simple as environments. If you analyze every room that you're in throughout the day and every, like, whether it's your work, your gym, your coffee shop, your home, is that environment working against you or is it working for you? And I did daily audits, weekly audits, quarterly audits, and I kept changing my programs.
okay.
Um, and I just started realizing that our health is so much more complex than just the normal self care,
Mm,
fitness, nutrition, and that health is integrated into every aspect of our life. And as I started to do that, I was like going through like, all right, what are all the things that I'm going to do to like, I call them trainings, right? It's like,
yeah.
what are the trainings in each one of these verticals that I can start doing outside of my normal routines? And I was able to fix everything, of
Wow.
course. I'm just at a place where I'm the healthiest that I've ever been,
Mm,
and also in a place of the most flexible that I've ever been,
mhm.
where I used to be that person that was
Like,
100%
I need my
perfect.
routine, I need
Yeah,
my
everything perfect.
yeah.
And that's not life. And I think that actually made me weak. And that's why
Mm,
I was saying, like, I wasn't resilient to moving to a new city, even though I had the same health regimen. So then the goal with the framework was like, all right, if I just told everyone what I did, that's not going to work for you.
right, because it's all dependent on your biomarkers and your personalized experience and lifestyle.
Yeah. So I started thinking, like, what is the topic in the categories, in the sections, and then how can I give a training that you would then take the training and think like, how does this training apply to my life?
Mhm.
How am I analyzing it?
Mhm.
And then what can I do to offset it? And it's been really interesting. And it's like you get it with a podcast or the blogs or any of these things. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of
Yeah.
energy. And I think this is something that we started really small,
Mhm.
but this will evolve and grow over time. And like I said, like if I have 30, 40, 50 years ahead of me, like the goal is just to do it slowly but surely, but really carefully. And
Yeah.
our like whole thing is like we have so many opportunities and it's so exciting, and but I also need to be patient and I need to make sure that each thing is as the best that it can be and not rush. Um but I'm grateful because I think the response was great, and it's really it's helpful, and that goes back to our full mission, right? To like be this free educational platform, and I'm excited to see it evolve over the years.
I I totally agree. And something that I really admire too about the framework is like I was poking around on the website and exploring it a little bit, and I was like, none of this is paywalled.
No,
It would have been so easy to make that a membership add-on to Remedy Place, but
yeah,
it's free.
and it has nothing to do with remedy. It's not
Oh,
saying go and do your sauna, go do your, and it's
interesting.
important to me because I'm like,
It's just free
I'm
education.
not here to sell you remedy. Like I said, like you don't need remedy to be healthy. Remedy can give you all the tools you need to be healthy or to speed things up, but the future of remedy is a place where you go to have fun,
It's
connect with
just like a
people you love.
social destination
Yeah,
focused around something that's not alcohol,
exactly.
which like shouldn't be that groundbreaking, but
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
considering the lifestyles that we live. I think that so much of this conversation is important just because it all feels so approachable,
yeah,
right? Like, I think people look at Eastern medicine and they're terrified of it. Like, to be honest, I'm gonna make a confession right now. I've never seen a chiropractor
yeah,
because I grew up a ballerina and everyone was like, "Don't let anyone adjust
yeah,
you. Like, that's dangerous."
yeah,
And now I'm like, I think maybe I'm coming around to it.
yeah,
And all of this stuff that feels like unfamiliar or inaccessible, all it is really about is about repeated exposure and about the packaging, right? Like we talked about with alcohol. Like if someone could make poison that appealing and that exciting to people, then why not this? And I think, just talking about it in this way to me makes it just so crystal clear. Like if you could feel 10 times better than you feel right now, just by changing, like, what you're doing a little bit throughout the day or what you're eating or, like, who you're hanging around
yeah.
before you put something foreign and unfamiliar into your body. Why?
No,
Like, why are you more scared about the holistic stuff
yeah,
when, like, you are not researching what's in that drug,
yeah,
right? Like, it just is the process of
yeah.
being prescribed a drug feels more familiar.
Also, change is uncomfortable, and but you only grow if you're uncomfortable. And I actually really like my goal is to be forever uncomfortable because that means I'd be forever growing.
Obsessed. I'm obsessed. I'm gonna tattoo it on my forehead. So, Dr. Leary, the last question that I ask everybody who comes on this show, and I'm so interested in your answer. The idea of the show is to like live your life bigger and louder and to do it for as long as possible.
Yeah,
So we talk about all the different kinds of health. And I feel like so much of our conversation today talked about all the different kinds of health and how they, all contribute to your overall wellness. If you had a word that you could put it in caps lock and everywhere you go, that's the word people see and hear and think when they associate it with you. What word do you put in caps lock? Whether it's like what you subscribe to for your life or you're like, that's the message you want to send.
yeah. Social self care. I mean, I think
Mm,
that's what we've created. We've trademarked it. We own it, and I think that's what I want to become known for. I want to show people that self care is very logically, like literally, taking care of yourself, and to do that with people you love and make it social, and to do both at the same time. I hope that that's where I can leave a little bit of a legacy.
it's definitely in my future. I'm like on here making an appointment as we speak. Dr. Leary, thank you so much. I think there's so much value in so much of what we talked about. I think people have a lot to learn from you. I think if you haven't checked out Remedy Place, check it out. Where are we seeing new locations? What are our
Yeah.
next spots?
The only one I can announce is
Okay.
Boston.
Okay.
Boston's around the corner. I'm very excited.
We have a lot of Boston people listening to this show.
Incredible. And I grew up in Rhode Island, so
Right,
like
you're a New
it's
England
close to
boy.
home and Boston's a cool city and
I love it.
there's a lot happening there. So I
Yeah.
think people were surprised, but I'm really excited about it.
That's going to be amazing. All right. Well, if you haven't checked out Remedy Plays, this is your official endorsement from me. I'm obsessed with it. Dr. Leary, thank you again for coming on the show, and I hope we get to see you again soon.
Thank you for having me.